Welcome to Emotionally Baked, where baking and emotions are the two most perfect ingredients. Hello, and welcome back to Emotionally Baked, the podcast where we talk about our emotions while baking and discussing and hopefully baking our cares away. Welcome if you have listened thus far. This is podcast number 10. I can't believe we're at a milestone already. I'm so super excited, and I'm going to celebrate all the little milestones. So this is episode 10, and I wanted to go ahead and talk today about something that's kind of gone through some of the episodes that I've already done. And yeah, just get into it just a little bit more. So I wanted, like the title says, talk about anxiety. So we're doing anxiety, and we're going to make some apple streusel muffins for the weekend. So these are going to be for my family to pick up and grab as we go. We have lots of stuff to do this weekend. So yeah, I'm going to be softening my butter as I'm discussing, because it says I need to soften my butter. So I don't know what better way there is than to just kind of knead it to get it soft. You can stick it in the microwave, but I always tend to do it a little too much, and then it's melty instead of just soft. So yeah. So anyways, I found this recipe from crystalscooking.com, and I'm going to go ahead and link it in the notes and the description. I'll put all the ingredients there. But basically, we've got some milk, butter, sour cream, egg, vanilla, some chopped apples, flour, sugar, baking powder, salt, and cinnamon. That's just for the muffin itself. Then we're going to make a streusel topping. Y'all, if I could put a streusel topping on top of anything, I think I would, because I love streusel topping. This one calls for flour, butter, white sugar and brown sugar, cinnamon, and salt. Super easy to make a streusel topping, and it just adds something to muffins. I think it just makes it just special, like you're getting them from a professional bakery. They're just so much fun. Okay, so as we're starting, and as always, I have my favorite bowl. I'm going to put the wet ingredients in here, and then I'm going to sift the dry ingredients in there into here. So that's what we're going to start with. So I'm just going to do that while we're chatting. So in the podcast that I have done previously, I have mentioned that I've had anxiety before, and that's kind of just been the comments that I've mentioned along the way. And part of me feels like, don't we all just have a little bit of anxiety? Maybe not. But I wanted to tell you kind of what anxiety looks like for me, and kind of how it started, and kind of got my egg. Thank you, chickens. Our chickens have been doing really well. I'm looking over there, I think it's looks like about 3 dozen eggs, but somebody is getting some for me soon, so I don't want them to go to waste. So what anxiety looks for me, and how it kind of, I want to start kind of from the beginning, how it looks for me, and how it manifested itself, and then kind of the progression, and kind of where we're at now. So I think that's kind of a good gauge and kind of how to do it. I don't know. I usually don't really talk about my anxiety, and I've talked with my doctors and stuff like that, but not really. My husband knows, but I don't really think I've discussed it. So this will be fun. All right, let me get my vanilla in here. Should I say it's going to be fun? It might be hard to talk about, because it might bring up some things, but we're going to make it through and bake it through together. So hang in there. Well, I've already found a hitch in my baking. I looked in my refrigerator, and there was sour cream in my refrigerator, and somebody put it back empty. So I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but I've already started on my recipe. So I'm going to go ahead. There, I scraped it out. So let's hope what little bit is in there works. We don't know. And we will see. So, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. That's going to give me anxiety, isn't it? To see if this all works out. Anyway. So, I put my vanilla in here, my little bit of sour cream I had, my butter, my milk, my egg, my vanilla. I think I said that already. I will chop up my apples in a minute, but I won't get to that just yet. I'm going to go ahead and sift my dry ingredients and put this to the side. So, my anxiety. Now, I will say, I feel like I have had anxiety. You know, I've had the normal anxiety, the normal amount, I think. You know, that when you're, you know, like, you're anxious before a test or before, you know, a big thing that's coming up or that kind of thing. That I would dare to say the normal anxiety. You know, the things that you would, if you feel anxious about, it's not that uncommon to feel anxious about. I feel like I had those normal. I feel like my main issue with anxiety sprung up when I was in my 20s. Now, I'll go ahead and explain why I believe that to be. But first, I have to explain just a little bit that I am adopted. I was adopted when I was 6 months old. I think I've mentioned it before. But I was adopted when I was 6 months old. And a family adopted myself and my twin brother. So there's two of us, myself and my twin brother, at the same time. And which was great because we were never separated. So that was super wonderful. And grew up in a loving home. And we were part of a, what should I call it? We were part of a, I would almost have the equivalent to be like a military family, but it was like a church. So like a private school system where my parents were principal teacher, and so we had to move around quite a bit. So it wasn't like we got to live in one area for, like, I wasn't in one area my whole schooling. Like, I was in kindergarten. Let's see, my toddler years were in Tennessee and Florida. And I went to kindergarten in one school. I went to 1st through 4th grade in a different school. I went to 5th grade in a different school. I went to 6th and 7th grade in a different school. And I went to 8th grade in a different school. High school, I was able to spend my entire time in high school at the same school, which I was super grateful for. Made lifelong friends. That was amazing. But yeah, I moved around quite a bit. And so once I was in high school, and then I ended up meeting my husband and at the end of high school, and went to college, got married, and by 24 I had my daughter when I was 24, and I had my middle son when I was 27, 28. He'll be turning 17 soon. Oh my goodness. So yeah, when I was like 27, I had my son. So about 3 months, so I was still postpartum. So this story now picks up 3 months after my son was born. My middle son. I have a third son, but my middle son. So 3 months after my son was born, It was, I wouldn't say it was any old day. It was a day. It was a day that I will remember forever. I received a phone call, or no, do you remember this? AOL. Do you remember AOL? Where it was like the first like text messaging or it was instant messenger, right? Instant messenger, that's what it was called. And you can message friends or family or whoever back and forth. It's an easy way to communicate. And I was on the computer, and my father at the time was away traveling on a business trip, and he texted me or sent me a message over this instant messenger. And just to kind of like paraphrase a little bit, I won't go into all the details because it's hard, it's difficult, but basically he wanted me to tell my mother, who was home. She lived near me, and he was away, so he was away on a trip. He wanted me to tell my mother for him that he was going to leave. He was going to leave her. He was going to leave our family and stay in, he was actually out of the country, out of the United States, and he was going to stay away, and he wasn't coming back. And that, I believe, started, that moment was pivotal in my mental health journey, because it really, I'm just gonna sift this into here and just keep mixing it. That's all I'm doing. I maybe should have melted the butter because it's a little clumpy still, but yeah. Oh, we're gonna mix in the apples too. So I'm getting a little anxious about it right now. My heart's going really fast. That is one way that my anxiety has manifested. It has manifested into panic attacks. And I'll go more into detail of that in a minute. But so anyway, since you know the background that I am adopted, there's a lot of information about adoptees and what we feel as, the emotions that we feel behind certain aspects of life because of being adopted, and just our circumstances in general. And mine in particular, the adoption for me, and I don't know if it's like this for all adoptees, but I have a very I don't know what to say, but like a tenuous, that's a good word, a tenuous relationship with people leaving me, being left out, that kind of thing. And so when, like, I don't remember being given up for I don't remember that because I was so young, but just knowing that, like, you were given up for adoption, and then, just, you kind of live with this, or I did. I lived with this feeling of, like, I could be left at any moment, and that filters through relationships, and it filters through, friendships and things like that. So when, I had to leave, when I had to move so much with all the family that we were, all the places that we were moving, that affected me too, in the sense, like, I felt, you get that, like, it's like this another wave of, like, I'm being left, or I'm doing the leaving, but it's still sad, and all the things, and all that. So, like, I really had a hard relationship with being left and being left alone, or yeah. Okay. I went ahead and sifted that off camera. into my muffins. So I'm just stirring the batter, and it's coming out really well. Just a nice thick batter, and then I'm going to chop these apples up to see. It said a cup and a half. A cup and a half? A cup and a lot. Or half a cup. No, it's only half a cup. Oh my goodness. I was thinking I had to do a lot. Okay. So we'll start with one apple. Okay. So when I say my ex-father, when my ex-father decided to leave, it's not like, it was like my worst fear coming true. It was my worst nightmare, my worst fear, all the things. And I really was, like shocked. I mean, it came out of nowhere. It was a person who, was a private school principal and taught, he taught, religious things, and was, to me, I felt like a godly person, and taught sermons, and preached, and was somewhat of a pillar of the community, and it just truly shocked me that this was happening. And at the time, so I was 27 at the time. I held my ground, however, and I did not give in and say, sure, I'll tell Mom. I said, no, this is not my responsibility, and you need to do that. That's something that you need to do. And that whole moment of realizing finally that he was going to say something to my mom, finally, and that I was going to be, I was going to have to be there, and like this was happening now, And so not long after our conversation ended, my mother called me, absolutely in tears, crying. This rocked and shocked her world, and I won't go into the details of everything, but this was her person, and the fact that this person was choosing this was beyond devastating. And so I can remember, some stuff is blocked out of, like, I feel like I physically blacked out. I physically blacked out from what happened, just because I think it was so traumatic that I just couldn't function. It was just so, those are the apples are going in. It was just so traumatizing to the system and all the things. And I just couldn't, I don't think I could fully mentally process what was happening. And, but don't tell anyone, this was 27 years ago. Has it been that long? No, 17 years ago. Dude, I'm just going to make myself way older than I actually am. So my mom didn't live too far from me, and the speed in which I ran out of this house, I ran without shoes. I had no shoes on. I had no concept of my own safety. I ran, and I drove without shoes. I drove, I just was trying to get to her as fast as I could. And the state in which myself, my mom, we were in after all this, or during this, I should say, I feel like really, there was just so much, because it was like the shock of the moment and what we were feeling. And one second, I'm going to grab my muffin pan. And just the general situation of it all, like really, it really did. And I believe that's where my, I'm just using a scooper to put my muffins in the tin. I feel like that's where my anxiety started. Because I kind of, not that I thought that something was going to happen like this, but like being adopted, I felt like I was on the edge of something. Like I'm on the edge of, like, I could get hurt, or somebody's going to leave me, or something's going to happen, and at any moment. And so I kind of just was, it was like all the realizations of all of my fears, like just barreling down at one moment. And even though I felt like I was there for my mom, I think I did a good job of being there for my mom. Even though I was there for my mom and all that, I still felt like, like my world was just falling out from underneath of me. And it was just, it manifested then. It manifested itself into, pardon me, I'm grabbing a spatula. It manifested itself into the anxiety that I know full and well today. So after I get this done, I'm going to talk about how my anxiety manifested itself. So that's what I feel like, how it happened, how it came upon me, and how it got agitated and like showed its ugly head. And we're gonna make the streusel together as I talk about how it has manifested in my life. Okay, so I put the streusel ingredients in the bowl, and I'm just gonna use a fork and just cut in the butter into the flour and the sugars, and that's just to make it like crumbly. And I usually use a pastry cutter, but as this is so tiny, I am just gonna use a fork. So, and I don't think my pastry blender will fit in this little bowl. So right after all of this happened, I was thinking more about like, how do we get things done for my mom, and things like that. And I really wasn't thinking about myself, as often that happens. I'm a type 2 helper, and I'm also a Pisces, so I'm very like, I'm very much like, I need to help and do what I can, all that kind of stuff. So the first time I realized that what kind of form my anxiety took, at first, because it has manifested over the years, was when I went to a store, and I swear I saw my ex-dad. I swear it wasn't him, but I could not go to the store. I had to, I'm just going to sprinkle these on top of the muffins. This is how they look in the tin. Yummy, yummy. And we're just going to sprinkle this on top. It wasn't him, but I started hyperventilating. I didn't want to see him. I thought it was him. Like my brain just really thought it was, and I just immediately started to have a panic attack. I panicked, and I just, it was one of those, it was just really awful. Like I left the store, and I was in my car, and I was, I even called my husband, and I was breathing so bad, and felt like I was having a heart attack. And I was just like, I don't even know what that was. And, it happened a couple other times, and I don't know what it is with our brains and like the recognition of, like face, like if a face looks similar to something, or something reminds you of something that has been super triggering in the past or something like that. I'm not quite sure what I don't know. I don't understand the mechanics of it, but my brain definitely was doing it. My brain was firing on all cylinders, as they speak, as they say. Okay, so I put the muffins in the oven, 400 degrees, 18 minutes. I thought it was a little high for that, but I'm gonna check them just to make sure so I don't they're not burnt. So anyway, so that was how I initially started seeing my my anxiety start, and it quickly ran away with me, in the sense of like everything that was in my life. I felt like, I had 2 kids, family, everything besides this happening was good. I had my wonderful mom and my in-laws and my husband and my kids, but I could not separate that. I felt like everybody was going to now leave me, like, in some way, shape, or form, whatever that was, and I know that's kind of morbid to talk about, but it was just like, I felt like it was just, this one time was happening, and it was just going to happen. It was just going to crumble. Like my whole world was going to crumble. And so I felt on edge all the time. And it became a mind game. And it became like, I'm going to, it was almost like making these scenarios that were going to happen. And like, it did happen, and now, like, and it just heightened up all of my senses to, like, the things around me and what was happening. And I just felt like it's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain. But I did go to therapy after this happened, and I was in therapy for many years, and it wasn't just dealing with this instance. It was dealing with everything from being adopted and all those feelings and how that all wrapped into everything, and it was the whole thing. It was all of it, and it really helped. It really got me through some major, difficult, hard times of the situation, and but also realizing, really realizing what was going on in terms of my mental health and things, and I did have to come to a realization that I might need medication to regulate that I constantly felt on edge. Like I could not go my day without feeling like I was constantly concerned and worried. Like I had the normal worry, and then it just skyrocketed, and I just couldn't regulate. And so I did eventually go on medication for my anxiety, and but through the years and through going through this whole because like I said, it's been 17 years since this happened. It's been a journey, to say the least, because you can heal, and you can get better, and you can get through some things, but you never I don't, at least for me, mine is, I've never gotten over it. My anxiety has gotten, like I've learned how to deal with certain parts of my anxiety better. I've learned how to, it's with learning and with experience, and, make sure you take your medication, make sure you do your, if I feel like I'm going into a panic attack, or that I'm, worried about something and then it just exacerbates, like learning how to kind of regulate my system where I don't, go into a full blown panic, episode. Those were very much learned over, like I had to learn those things over the past almost 2 decades. I've had to learn those things. And anxiety looks different in all people. If you suffer from anxiety, or maybe you don't, maybe you don't know, because I it's not like I didn't want to label and be like, well, I have anxiety, like I didn't want to label it, and I didn't, at first it was just like, what's going on? And I will tell you, I have taken many a test at the doctors, and I've ran through things that at one point in my life I thought, something is, because what are we told? That heart disease in women is one of the foremost causes of death. And so I was super worried that there was something wrong with my heart, and kept feeling like I was having a heart attack, and like, what is going on? And lo and behold, it's stress and anxiety. That's what it is. I had the heart EKG test. I had the treadmill test. I had the brainwave test. I had MRIs. I had all the things because I was convinced I was having a heart attack or something was going on, and my doctor was like, well, we're going to check it out and everything. And that's what it was like. And, everything came back, don't you hate when everything came back normal? I was like, it's not normal. Like, what is going on? Like, what is, and slowly realizing, through my wonderful doctor and the things, I've experienced, that like, this is what's going on, and this is how we are going to treat, and this is, what we're going to do. So that is kind of like, I don't know if it explains totally all of how it manifested, but it started out as panic from visual recognition, like thinking that I was going to come in contact with. I have not seen my ex-father in 17 years. So that's, if that gives you a clue about anything that's transpired or happened. So like seeing, and it's taken me a long time to even call him by his first name again, and just to kind of heal from all those wounds and all that kind of thing. Somebody asked about him the other day, and I just said, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And it's really gotten easier to just talk about, but it's not it's not an immediate turnaround. It didn't take a couple of years. It took many, many years to get to that point. For the first 10 years, I could not hear his name. I couldn't see a picture. I couldn't, like, it was so triggering to my anxiety and my depression to hear anything that had related to do with him. And it would just send me into a downward spiral. And so I protected myself from that. But I can see now how far I've come, because now I can say ex-father, I can say his name, I can say, this is what happened. And even being able to talk about it here. My chest is a little tight. I did take my anxiety med today. My chest is a little tight about it. It still brings up some really hard feelings, emotions, and stuff. It really brings up a lot. when I do talk about it, but yet I feel like cathartic in a little bit of a way to say, okay, like this is in the past and you've healed a lot, Heather, and now we need to be, or I feel like I want to be on the other side of it, and which is why I wanted to talk about it. So the anxiety didn't just stick with the parts of that situation. It did roll over into other aspects of my life. So if I, felt it, whatever, like, the anxiety never occurs with, like, happy emotions, I should say. It always comes with something that is, and I wouldn't say dangerous, but something, an emotion that I might feel like I need to protect myself in terms of my mental health or something like that. So if I'm in a situation where I feel cornered or I feel vulnerable or, when I stick up for myself, but it's hard. It's hard to have that courage sometimes. Like in those situations, if you're like, any verbally combative situation or anything where like, and I've explained before, like some stuff has happened where I spiral, my anxiety will make me spiral because I've, anything where I feel like I have to put up a barrier, a wall, something to protect my heart, to protect my mind, it like, and then I just, yeah. So as I was saying that I had gone to the doctors, anxiety has, my medication has really helped me to regulate, but it does manifest itself physically in ways. And if you've ever experienced a panic attack, it does feel like you're having a heart attack. It feels like you can't. I remember my first one. That's why I wanted to get tested, because I felt like I was going to die. I had my chest hurt so bad. I was, I couldn't breathe. I was sweating. I could not catch my breath. It was just something that and my chest was so tight, and it was just something that completely shocked me. Now when I feel like it's coming on, I can regulate and use my tools at my disposal to kind of not let the panic attack totally happen. And I get my nerves get shot. I get really shaky. Definitely headache, exhaustion, just physical exhaustion, bodily exhaustion. If I have too much anxiety over something, I have to take a nap, or I have to lay down, or I have to do some bit of recovery because it's just too much. So that's kind of how it's manifested. How are we dealing with it? So definitely dealing with through medication, dealing with it through self-care, doing a lot of, that has taken almost 2 decades to figure out my self-care, making sure that I'm taking care of myself in all aspects of my day and my life, not just when I'm feeling anxious, like just to know that I have to continually keep my space and me, like, on a certain path to kind of make sure that my anxiety doesn't like flare up. And those are different. Those things are different every day. So it's like, did I have my coffee today? That helps me to have that helps me to like, doing regular things really helps me. Doing things that, are special help me. Making sure that I take a shower, making sure that I, do something with my hair, or do a little makeup, or do my nails or something, those little things definitely help. And just making sure that, you're getting those external, like I got my hobbies, I got my this, I got my that, like making sure. And then making sure you have the people around you in your life that can really truly uplift you and benefit you and to help you to be the best you is like the number one top thing. My muffins, I think, are done. The timer's gonna go off. I'm gonna get them. Hold on. Okay, friends, they are done. They look so yummy. I cannot wait to have them for breakfast in the morning. Yum, yum, yum. So, as we let them cool off, because I would like to try one, but they need to cool off because they're super, super hot. But I did want to finish up the anxiety conversation with just, saying that like anxiety looks different to a lot of people and it manifests itself initially and, ow, I just burned myself. Oh no. It manifests itself initially in all different ways. But know that there is someone, at least one person, me, but there are others out there who have experienced experiences that have brought on this I don't want to say, it's not a way of life. It's just something that we've dealt with, that we have learned how to deal with, and that there's others out there who have learned to deal with it too, and we understand, and we get it. And it's really hard to explain to somebody who doesn't have anxiety what it feels like and what it does to your person. And you don't want to have it. I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to feel on pins and needles at points. Like I want to just be calm and to know, it'll be okay and all the things there. And like I said, I wasn't always this way. Maybe a little bit, but nothing out of the norm. But when you're trying to explain to, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's your children, and I've had to explain before to my kids, like, mommy's feeling, I'm feeling a lot of emotion right now. And it's I don't remember how I used to explain it to my kids. I was trying to figure that out in my brain right now, but as they're older, we can just freely talk about it, which is good. But telling others in your life, like, this is what I'm feeling, and this is how, and they might not understand, and that's okay. They might not get it because they don't experience it, but it's the people in your life that, even though they don't get it, they don't understand, they're still like, that's okay, I got you anyways. That's the people we need in our life. That's the people we need who are just there. And that's why I'm so grateful for my husband, because he watched the whole thing happen. He watched, the beginning of it. He watched how it manifested. He watched me spiral. He watched me, he watched me think that he was going to leave me, that he was, he was going to do the same thing to me. And, he stuck by all of my everything, all of my down days, all of my fears. And it was, if I hadn't had him to be there to say, good cry, that he has, he had me. Marry your best friend, y'all. Marry your best friend. I don't think I could have gotten through. Yeah. So, whew, that was a lot. And hopefully we get this sweet treat out of it. Yay. I want to try one so bad. 400 I thought was going to be too much. They're pretty good. They're not too, I will test it to see about the sour cream. It doesn't look like the sour cream, my lack of it, didn't do, hopefully, too much. They look nice and fluffy and yummy, and hopefully they taste wonderful. All right, friends. Thank you. This is the 10th episode. Woohoo! Thank you for listening, and just so glad you're here. And yeah, so just remember, whether the salt in your recipes comes from tears or a teaspoon, just remember, we baked it out. Bye.